Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Underneath the Hood. I'm Dave Martin, the owner of Martin's Auto Repair in Central Phoenix.
I'm Glen Hayward, the proud owner of Goodworks Auto Repair in sunny Tempe, Arizona.
And I'm Lee Weatherby with Accurate Automotive in the heart of Mesa.
And together, we represent 140 years of combined automotive experience.
Our goal is to change the perception of our auto repair industry by going behind the scenes and underneath the hood.
And we hope to share with you what it's like to own a small business and give you a perspective from an insider's point of view.
So let's get started. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Underneath the Hood podcast. And I am here joined by Glen, Lee, and me, Dave Martin.
All righty. Well, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Lee.
Morning, Glen.
Great to
Morning,
be
Dave.
here again. Today
Good to
is
see you.
June the 24th.
June the 24th. What happened then?
Well, in June 24th of 1966, the Senate of the United States government voted to approve the National Traffic Motor Safety Vehicle Act. And that means on September 6th of that year, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was our president at the time, went on to sign it into law, and many changes were made in both vehicle designs and had to follow government mandates to make sure that these vehicles were safe to drive on the roads.
Do you know what some of those mandates were? Safety crinkle zones. You know what I mean? The way the car, when it's in a crash, the way that it crumbles.
Oh, absolutely, because they used to bounce off of each other.
They did.
Yeah, remember the accidents you see? They just hit each other and bounce off. It was just, now the cars crumble. Yeah,
And safety
And,
vests.
and, gu- and guess what? Guess what did crumble? Drivers, when they hit the steering wheel,
Yeah, there we go.
Well,
and they'd break their face, they'd break the windshield.
Oh, yeah.
Safety belts was another thing that was required at that point.
Well,
And
safety
every
belts
vehicle
used to be just laps.
well, I can take that back even further. My dad, the first car that I was in, didn't have any safety belts.
Yeah.
The mom's arm, dad's arm stuck out when they hit the brakes. Was
Yep.
safe? Was that was your restraint system?
No, I just want to.
Me and my brothers, I had 4 brothers, man. We'd be climbing around like monkeys in the back seat of the
Yeah.
station wagon.
Well, I remember when we were growing up, we used to have the station wagons that had the seats that faced backwards.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
My parents had one of those. Yeah,
We could, do to the cars behind us. No
Yeah.
safety belts, nothing. It was awesome.
Oh no!
But let me ask you this question: you guys ever been in a bus that had a safety belt?
No,
That's a school bus.
That school buses didn't have safety belts. That was another thing. It just blew my mind. Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember we used to, the
what
cars.
could possibly happen to a school bus?
Yeah.
we used to lay in the back window
Yeah.
of I can't even remember the car that my parents had. It was a Mercury, I believe.
Yeah.
It was a Mercury. You climb on top of the seat and you used to lay back there.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody ever thought about any of that garbage. You know what I
No.
mean? But you were just basically a lawn dart at
Yeah.
that point. I mean, if you got in an accident, you were flying.
Lawn dart.
you were flying, man.
You were just locked and loaded.
You were a missile, man.
Yeah.
You were going to end up somewhere, and it wasn't going to be pretty.
Well,
But-
you know what? It's interesting though. I mean, because here's the thing: that's progress. I mean, if you think about it, this is progress towards making the vehicles that we now have today. You know, I mean, come on, how often do we complain about, oh, God, put your safety belt on because the beeper won't go off, right? Or whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's really nice if we start thinking about some of the things that are creature comforts. You know what I mean? But they're also helping us to be safe, getting from A to
Well,
B.
and think about this, guys. The thing of it is I got 3 granddaughters, and literally they put them in a car seat that is NASCAR approved.
Yes.
I mean, literally,
It could be
these guys.
it could be NASA.
It's got the little helmet.
Sentiment
on it.
around it.
These kids are like, I mean, they are restrained. It's awesome.
It is
It's awesome what they've done with the technology there.
It is.
But I mean, literally, by the time you're done buckling them in, it's like, holy moly, this kid ain't going nowhere, And it's like, it's awesome. But
No, this is just a fun side fact that I thought we'd throw up because I remember one time at lunch we were talking about this. Do you know where most of the innovations come for some of these new cars? They don't come from the manufacturers and then go into the race world. They usually come
from the race world to you know what? It come from the race world. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've read that before.
Yeah.
NASCAR gives the manufacturers a lot of great ideas for safety and for
car seats.
car
like you're
seats.
talking
Yeah.
about.
No, it's awesome. It really is. And you just look at them and it's so amazing the way these things are built.
Yeah.
And
They even remodified, like when Dale Earnhardt was killed tragically in a car crash.
That helmet strap.
They absolutely came up with another idea to help drivers, because others had been injured but not killed from not having that. So now they've got
that was a
Whiplash.
that was a freak accident.
It was.
But you're right, and it could end her career with getting bad whiplash or something along those lines. Well, guys, we're here to do another podcast, and we got off topic here, but I want to read
Does
this
that
to you.
happen often, Dave?
We never get
It's like-
sidetracked.
Like herding cats around here, you know what I mean? Yeah. You know, we
Sidetracking. That's,
All right, well,
that's
stick to
for-
the topic. Come
yeah.
on.
Let's get
Spit
to
it out
Let's
here.
get to the topic.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, calm down, everybody. Just calm down. Take a chill pill here. All right. According to Carfax, many Americans are behind on critical vehicle maintenance. Now, 25% are behind on an oil change. 44% haven't had their tires rotated as required. 20% are behind on both services. So think about that. And we know this, right, guys? We see this on a regular basis. And the thing of it is that is really, I guess, confusing, I guess is the word I want to use, is that we're confused. And
Yeah.
can you imagine the consumer when they start looking across the board and start reading the owner manual, listening to different places and whatever, and somebody says service, change your oil at 3,000. Some say 5, some say 7.5.
Some manufacturers say 15.
Some say 15. Some
Yeah.
of them say lifetime. And
Right.
it just it gets so
It
convoluted.
is lifetime. As soon as the engine locks up,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the lifetime
yeah.
of the motor. There you go.
Well, and-
Worst case scenario. Hey, in fact,
And the oil for that matter.
let's
if-
dive into this.
Well, if it's okay, I love this actually, and I want to talk to it from maybe a perspective. If we look at worst case scenario, what happens if we don't do it? Can we look at it from like that perspective?
Oh yeah, from
what
the
happens-
end result.
The end result.
Yeah, I like
Starting
that.
at the end and going backwards. What happens when we don't do it? So,
Yeah.
I mean, things like you said, 25% are behind on their oil change. Glenn, what are a couple things that happen when we don't do our oil changes? You know what I mean? Routinely.
Well, one thing is like we find a lot of engines that come in that are burning oil, right? Much of that is due not only to the design of the motor, which has changed so drastically in the last 15 years with gas direct injected motors. They all consume oil. I don't care if it's a BMW or whether it's a Hyundai, whatever it is. I'm not saying that's the best to worst car manufacturer.
So they
I'm
risk
just
being
saying,
low on engine
It's
oil.
the
when they're
it's the
driving.
technology that everyone is using, and why are they doing it? Because it's so fuel efficient. It boosts horsepower. They're getting the spark plug right down there, down into the cylinder.
Mhm.
Where it didn't used to be. It used to be sitting way up. Now they've moved the fuel injectors down right next to the piston. They've moved the spark plugs way down by the piston. They're so deep in a well, you almost have to have one of those old well things to crank it up and get them out of there. But the point is that the technology has changed drastically, and people don't realize it. They're glad that they're fuel efficient, but they don't understand why, and they don't understand the nomenclature or the makeup, the way that the engine is designed and put together. The technology is amazing. But the repercussions, the downside of not changing the oil when you should, and the intervals. Unfortunately, the EPA a long time ago, due to pressures from the government, said, well, we're changing oil too often. We don't know. People aren't, they're pouring this drain oil down the sewers because the do-it-yourselfers or whatever. And so we're going to make the intervals longer. So we're using less petroleum and we're extending these things. But it consequently created another problem, which is, people consuming oil and waiting 7,500 or 15,000 miles or whatever, and now they bring their car in and they're a quart, 2 quarts, 3 quarts. Sometimes you can't even get a reading on the dipstick, right? Many cars now, I think we mentioned in another podcast that they don't even have a dipstick. They have an oil light sensor that comes on in your dash, but you don't know if it means you're out of oil, you're low on oil, or it's just time for an oil change. So a lot of times, like the gauge or the sticker up in your corner of your windshield says when your next oil change, it goes overlooked. Even if it's a red light, they think, okay, it's time to get my oil change. No, it's time, like, you better pull over before you lock up your engine. So what we see dozens of times a year is people who get their car towed in.
Yeah.
Because now it's banging, clicking, ticking.
Yeah, once it starts making
whatever.
noise, that's not a good
You're
sign.
done. Your
Yeah.
engine is through. It's not like we can just add some oil and the noise will go away.
Dave,
It's
give us another repercussion.
too late.
What else can happen? We've not changed our oil routinely.
Well, when you don't change your oil routinely, what can happen is you can create a lot of sludge inside
Bingo.
your motor.
Bingo.
And once you create that sludge inside your motor, it's really difficult to get that out.
What
And
happens to your gas mileage?
Well, and your gas mileage drops. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the oil has to go through these passages. And we had talked about this in another episode, but they're the size of a pin tip.
You bet.
And so once you plug those up, guess what? Oil isn't getting to the places where it needs to go. Pretty soon you start having catastrophic failures. Right. And it's one thing after another. Pretty soon you end up taking that motor apart, and pretty soon you find out all the sludge in there.
Why is the oil there? It's there to lubricate the components that are spinning inside of your engine.
Keep heat and friction. Keep heat and friction down.
And
That's what it's designed to do.
So suffice it to say, by not changing our oil, or worst case scenario, we're going to lead to the inevitable, which is probably
there's
replacing,
the word inevitable.
Yeah, we're going to inevitably
the death of your motor.
The death of
it's
the
just
motor.
a matter of how fast.
And how fast. And the thing of it is remember a while back I talked about how I check oil, and that is pulling the dipstick and then wiping it across my finger so that I can get a feel for it. Well, the reality of it is you can feel the grit, the grime, the dirt, the sand, whatever it is that you would be. We're going to call it the deposits, you know what I mean, that are in the motor.
Yeah, when that stuff starts circulating, guess what? It eats everything in its path.
Completely tearing the motor up.
Well,
so,
and
you're
one thing,
sandblasting the inside of your motor without knowing.
You know, and the thing that I want our listeners, and they probably already know this, but I want to throw this out there and just kind of reiterate it, is the two most expensive things in your car that are going to cost you a ton of money is your motor and your transmission.
Absolutely.
And guess what? They're all run by fluid.
Right.
They're all run by
which
oil.
is the least expensive service you can possibly do.
Absolutely. Well,
on
the next
your
thing I'd love to go to is tranny fluid. What happens if we don't do it? But before we get there, I mean, let's look at this. So, I mean, the one thing that I will tell you when it comes to oil, people are behind on their maintenance. It says in this, you know, you have to have a maintenance routine, a maintenance schedule. And I think it's imperative that you rely on your service professional to make a plan of action, you know what I mean? So that you know, am I going to change it at 3,000 miles? Because generally, if you're going to use 3,000 miles as your barrier, you're going to be using what we're going to call a semi-synthetic oil,
right.
Which is basically the old style oil, or the oil
like conventional.
Conventional, most people are used to. If you're going to go 5,000 to 6,000, you know what I mean? Which is probably the max that we ever recommend. We never go beyond 6,000 in any kind of vehicle. And I don't care what it says, because I'm of the belief if you go past 6,000 miles, you're now falling into the manufacturer's trap of helping you wear your car out so they can sell you another one.
I think you're just being greedy, man.
Well, and that's okay.
We make so much money on oil changes. That, you know,
and you're being.
Let me set the record. Let me set the record straight. There is no shop in the world that makes its living on oil changes.
No.
We do that. It's a courtesy thing. We want your car to last.
Well, it boils down
the
to
more
convenience.
often you change your oil, and I'm not saying change it every 1,000 miles, but I will tell you, if your car sits for a year and you only drive it like 3,000 miles a year,
change the oil.
Change it anyway.
Yes.
Because it'll break down just from the chemicals that get mixed with the oil from the combustion, from the engine running and exploding gasoline and putting those hot vapors down in there. It starts to contaminate the fluid. And some of it is,
can I give you a visual picture for just that?
Absolutely.
Because I had a person ask me that one time. They said, I went out of the country. My car sat in the garage for about a year and a half. And do I need to change the oil? And I said, yes. And they go, okay. And I go, let me give you an example. They go, what's that? I go, pour yourself a glass of water, sit it in the garage next to the car, put a lid on it, and sit it there. Year and a half later, come back. Do you want to drink the water? She goes, no. I go, why not? It's still water. It's the same water that you just poured. It's the same. Why do you not drink it? Well, there was stuff that settled in it. There was deposits of exactly just like the oil.
Oxidation, contamination. You know. There's so many things that go on. Your motor is a chemical plant.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. You know, we can all agree on this: is if you go to Colorado, their climate and Arizona climate is totally different. Correct?
And I think it's so great that you bring that up.
Right. Yeah. And the thing of it is you need to adjust your maintenance to the climate that you're in. Yeah.
Whatever
region you're in. That's a good word.
Yeah.
And you know, another thing that we didn't even talk about that I kind of want to throw in the mix here a little bit, and it's kind of a little bit off topic, but it's not.
Most of everything you say is just a little bit off topic.
Off the wall. Good. Well, usually they say it's off the wall, not off topic.
Okay.
Not off topic. But
I didn't want to be too insulting.
Really?
Just enough to make.
What are you trying to turn over a new leaf or something?
Yes,
trying to make up for the first.
I'm repenting for all the mean things
for 70 years of your life.
Right.
But hold on a second, guys. You know, when you don't change your oil for 15,000 miles, the average person, 15,000 miles a year, you don't get somebody to look over your car for a whole year.
There you go.
Now, the bottom line is that you take trips, you want to get your kids to soccer practice, school, you've got so many different other things, and there's safety items in there that need to be inspected. And you want to make sure that your vehicle is roadworthy and you don't get behind a tow truck or you don't get broken down somewhere, because that's the worst thing in the world. Any parent or any person is going to tell you is being stuck on the side of the road with the kids.
Go to number 2 or whatever it was, I think, on your list. I think you said 1 was oil changes, then 2 was tire rotation.
Tire rotations, yeah.
And you said that's almost 40%.
44%, yeah.
Okay, so think about this. Now, a few months back, you had a blowout, right?
Yeah.
You'd had a blowout. And that happens. I mean, it happens to everybody. And the key to it is you can do all the things in the world to prevent it, but you know what? We can pick something up on the road that can change our world in just a second.
Yeah.
But we can also do the opposite, and we can preserve our tires or our investment. Because let's face it, you guys, tires are expensive. If I put tires on my truck, I'm talking about $1,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the easiest way I can think of, 2 real easy tips: keep air pressure in the tires. Don't let them get low on air. You know what I mean? Check them routinely. And keep them rotated. And what kind of mileage intervals are we talking for rotation?
Right. Let me add a couple.
What kind of mileage do you like to rotate your tires at?
5,000.
5,000.
And the reason why I say that is because there's cars that are front wheel drive, which is most of them.
Right.
Then you got vehicles that are rear wheel drive, pickup trucks primarily, and then you got all-wheel drive. Like I've got a Lexus parked outside here that's all-wheel drive.
Gotcha.
And so my question to you guys, do all tires wear the same? Do the front tires always wear the same as the rear tires?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
And which tires wear out first?
The fronts.
Right.
The fronts. And why do they wear out first?
Because of the yaw of the car.
Steering all the time.
That's right.
And when you're steering,
and you're driving too. You're driving where you drive. If you're driving in small proximities and you're turning all the time, your tires are going to wear on the edges a lot faster.
But it's also weight proximity. Because 90% of the weight is up front underneath the motor.
Yes, you're turning it, and now you've got front end parts that wear out.
You bet.
Over time, they don't wear out overnight. So all of a sudden, your ball joint breaks, or your it's a progressive thing. So people who are DIYs or do-it-yourselfers, right? They're not checking the alignment components. They're not checking to see if you got a ball joint that's starting to get loose, or
but now that falls into exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
If you're letting your car sit 10 or 15,000 miles on a year, all right, first off, you've already blown past the tire rotation, which it needed, and there's no way that a car should sit for a year in one spot on the tires anyways.
Oh, no.
They'll be flat spotted.
And they'll never recover.
But number 2, they're just exactly to what Glen's talking about. You didn't have a trained set of eyes looking at your vehicle to be able to say, hey, listen, we've got some weak ball joints, or we've got something else.
Leaking shock absorbers or struts.
I call it the lurking component. What's lurking?
Right. And, I always tell my guys this: whenever we rotate the tires, we look over, make sure that there's no nails or screws in it.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of construction going on.
Isn't that why we take pictures?
But I will tell you, ever since I had that blowout, you alluded that, you brought that up, where I had that blowout a few months back, I went to my guys and I told them, I says, I just had a blowout. I said, I want to reiterate what we talked about in our meetings, and hey, make sure that we look over this so our customers don't have this problem. Now, my situation was probably different because I probably hit something I ran over like a screw on the freeway, and it wasn't nothing we could have prevented. But the point is there's times, and we've all done this, where we rotated tires on the car, and what do we find? A nail or a screw in there. Yep. And it isn't leaking right at that moment, but we all know, guess what? It will be leaking in a short amount of time.
And I want to bring one thing else up too, because I think Glen even mentioned it
I
at
have
the
another
time.
one I'm going to add on top of that one, because it's probably different than yours, but go ahead.
That's fine. Well, the spare. Dave, when we got to the car on that day, your spare was aired up. It was ready to go.
Yeah.
How many times,
flat
guys,
spare tire.
You've been there for 10 years, never been pulled out, and now it's as flat as the one that you just...
So when the tires are getting rotated, you rotate and what? Check the spare.
Right. And always make sure that the key, if you have locking wheels, make sure that you have the key and put it in the same spot every time, because there's nothing worse, because you're already thinking about a million things when you got a flat tire, and you want to make sure that you know where you got to go to get it, because if somebody's going to help you, if you're going to change it yourself or whatever, you just got the ability.
It's in my dresser drawer.
Yeah. Don't ever take
to steal my car, my wheels.
Yeah. Don't ever take it out of the car, whatever you do, because that's when you're going to definitely need it. No doubt about it.
I'll tell you what, that is the best free advice anybody could ever get.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one that's going to top them all. How many times have we seen, or how many times have other people seen, when a tire blows out, how much collateral damage it does to the body, the inner fender wall, the wiring, anything that tire wall is flopping around and coming apart hits. Yeah. I mean, cars have literally been totaled as a result of a blown tire. Yeah. It did so much damage because you got computer modules in these fender wells. Yeah.
Wiring.
I had a guy tell me the other day his car got totaled because he blew a tire out, and it did so much collateral damage that it exceeded the value of the vehicle, and the insurance company totaled it.
We had a car like that come in the shop. We had a car in the shop. One of my friends, it was a good friend of mine, and he loaned his car to his girlfriend, and she ran over.
Biggest mistake you can ever make.
She ran over some spikes, and she had.
Was she on her? Was she trying to get away from the cops?
No. She just wasn't paying attention. And the one side of that she flattened both driver's side tires, and she drove the car all the way home. Well, the rubber had peeled off of there, and the whole side of the car was damaged and black, just black marks, and it was scratched from the metal and the rubber. The car was literally, like you said, the insurance company totaled it because to fix that was way more than what the vehicle is worth.
Yeah. And I mean, it can break the mirrors off. I mean, you don't know how that tire is going to come apart, right?
So it's interesting.
It's crazy. Broken windshields from it.
We've talked about the cost. We've talked about the things. The most basic thing of all, rotate your tires. I love your proximity every 5,000 miles, because basically that means for the people who are on a 5,000 mile oil change routine, every time you get your oil change, rotate the tires. Well, you know what? How much do you charge to rotate tires?
Nothing.
That's what
the manufacturers recommend, and it's not because they think their tires are crappy. They know their tires will last long, give you the best service, and actually upgrade their reputation as a tire company by not having their tires go flat and come apart.
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, at least 50% of vehicles that come in here have unequally worn tires. And the edges are worn. The centers are okay, so when both outside edges are worn, you've got an underinflated tire.
Absolutely.
If you overinflate your tires, then you're going to wear out the center of the tire, and the outsides will look like they got more tread on them.
And if you got a camber problem, you're going to wear out the insides.
And if you're out there doing burnouts, you can burn the whole freaking tire down.
So yeah. Well, and you're killing the life of the tire. You know, it was really funny. You brought up a burnout thing. So when we were 16, 17 years old, my brother,
you can remember back that far?
Well, I mean, it was just yesterday. My brother was smoking.
So it's a bit foggy?
Yes, a bit foggy. Yeah. Well, it was smoky then because my brother
smoke.
Dave, that sounds like extracurricular activity.
We saw that Cheech and Chong movie.
So my brother was smoking the tires on his truck, just goofing around, being an idiot.
How do you get him lit?
Well, he was, just flooring it and hit his brake on. You used to do back in the day,
I
right?
thought he meant he was. Okay.
Yeah. So he was smoking the tires, and I looked at my dad. My dad's laughing. And I go, "What are you laughing for?" He goes, "Because he's going to have to pay for them tires when he burns them out." And I started laughing. I go, "You're 100% right." Because you learn that lesson after you burn them out and you pay for those tires. You're like, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that again."
Well, and I want to go back to just the one thing that you said, because I mean, we're talking about basic things and what happens if we don't. We got some other things we got to hopefully get to, but I mean, we talked about the oil. We know that's catastrophically we're going to lose a motor.
Right.
With tires, it can go extreme. You could lose your life, because we were I think on that day
Good point.
We were talking about how you said, "Man, I didn't feel anything." I mean, and you won't always. That's the big key. And then all of a sudden, all at once, it hit like a thunder. You know what I mean? And it was all of a sudden it was
the seat of my pants, the whole back of the vehicle was shaking, and the
interesting thing is, so from nothing to that takes a split second.
Right, and this is how bad accidents do happen.
Absolutely.
Well, if you remember back in the day, one of the car companies, they had a tire that was exploding. They had problems and they were
Ford.
flipping over.
Firestone.
Yeah,
Ford
Firestone.
and Firestone.
Yeah,
Ford,
right,
yeah.
right. And they were flipping these vehicles over left and right. And
People were dying.
because the thing of it is what you just said a minute ago is
The
once
Ford
that tire.
Explorer, they called it the Exploder
They did.
because when
They
the
did.
tires would explode, the vehicle would roll.
Well,
and
and the center of gravity on the vehicle was higher, and
Right.
anyway, so they were driving down the road, and these things were flipping over
And
because
it's why we ended up with tire pressure monitors.
right, yeah,
That specific case.
right, and it's so important that we're going 70, 75 miles an hour down the freeways, and in a lot of cases,
if you're lucky.
if you're
Well,
lucky, some
what
people
I'm-
are driving faster, but
What I'm looking at is 41% or something of that nature.
44.
44%
Yeah.
are not taking care of it. I mean, listen, it's about as basic a service as you can do, and it costs nothing. So I mean, that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we get really focused on doing that. You brought up the second most expensive thing. That's transmissions.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens when we don't change our tranny fluid? I mean, tell me about that.
Well, but back in the day, and I've been doing this for 50 years, so I mean, back in the day,
You are old.
Hey, Glenn,
The-
we can't go back that far
I know.
because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, your memory is foggy.
And you did drive a Model A,
back
right?
in the day when you considered, when you even talked about changing your transmission fluid, there was the big, oh no, don't do that. It's the glue that's still holding your transmission together. You
Oh,
change
my
that
goodness.
fluid, your transmission
Really
is
good
going
point.
to fail.
Really
that
good
was
point.
that was the
Mentality.
mentality
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
Well, and
And-
now the transmissions, we all agree, transmissions have changed. Do you remember back in the day they were vacuum operated?
Yeah.
There was a
Vacuum modular.
vacuum little module in there that plugged into a vacuum hose. Now
The
it's all
most-
electronic. Now it's all
Yeah.
electronic.
The most popular one
Well,
is
now-
GM had a 2-speed transmission.
And you bet.
My
Hydrodyne.
buddy, my best friend Tim, his car had a 2-speed transmission. It was an Impala.
Now it's a
Well,
10-speed,
then
right?
they went to the 3-speed. Then they went to the 704s. Now we've got 6, 7, 8, 10-speed transmissions.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a variety of vehicles. And I mean, let's talk about
Let's-
the elephant in the room, the
Oh, CR,
Don't even go there.
CTV,
CVT.
CVT. There you go.
CVT.
constant velocity
continuously
transmission.
variable.
Yeah.
And I will just tell you this. You know
Oh,
what?
yeah.
They need to have fluid changed just like any other transmission. To your point, we get people that come in and say, transmission fluid in your vehicle is dark. Well, man, I've always heard I shouldn't change it once it's dark. You know what I mean? That's the glue, like you say, that's holding everything together. And I'm thinking, what kind of logic is that?
Once it's dark,
What kind of logic is
you
that?
close the windows, shut the doors, and lock them. No.
Well, that's like burying your head in the sand because what is the inevitable consequence?
Spending
lose
a
your
lot
tranny.
of money.
Yeah, got to spend a
Well,
lot of money.
and then the other side of the
10
coin
times
is
what it costs you to.
people
change
start
the
to have
fluid.
shifting problems in their car. How many times did they come into your shop and say, I just need a transmission service?
Yeah,
So they come in and ask for a transmission service, and they think that's going to solve their shifting problem.
and it's not
And
in a lot of
doesn't.
cases, and in some cases it will.
Right, but in a lot of cases it won't. So
Yeah.
so the expectations, whenever you bring your vehicle in, and this is for the listeners, whenever you bring your vehicle in, if you are experiencing any kind of shifting problems,
Please
you need to let
mention
them, please mention it and let them know, because we might be doing the wrong thing. We might be just servicing something that doesn't need to be serviced, and it may not fix your problem, and it may just be a waste of your money.
But now, so let's do this though, as a service interval. I mean, and I know this because I think on a previous podcast we talked a little bit about BG. Maybe we should talk about that one on my whole podcast one of these days. The advantages of using outside chemicals, but with BG, all right, and because I guess I should be established. When I buy my vehicle, I want to drive it 300 to 400 to 500,000 miles. Like I want it new to 500,000 miles.
I'm with you.
I'm not looking to replace it before I get that kind of mileage.
Right.
And so I guess what I'm saying is I want to preserve or prolong as much as I can. And in so doing, that means that I'm going to participate. All right. I'm going to stick my hand up and say, I want to participate at the highest level, that I can, or the most optimal level. So when's the first time that I replaced my tranny fluid? Well, I did mine at 31,000 miles. Then I followed it up again at 60,000, and then again at 90. So like every 30, I'm on a routine, just like oil changes, 3 or 5. You know what I mean? Every time it's a routine, but I stay consistent. And the key to it is, for me, I feel as though now I have well over 180,000 on my vehicle. It drives like a dream. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. Is it going to fail? Absolutely. But you know what? When no one knows the day or hour, you know what I mean? It's not like that. But I know this. I've already beat the odds. You know what I mean? Of the
You've doubled or tripled the
absolutely
odds
the
already.
expectation of what that
And you
component,
spend almost nothing doing it.
and that's the point.
But you own a shop, man. You can just do it anytime you want.
Oh,
it's
there's
such an
costs.
inconvenience. It takes days to change the transmission. I mean, people have this, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Generally an hour or less.
And it's it's a service that's done very quickly, and it'll prolong the life of your car and literally save you thousands of dollars. That's the whole deal.
Thousands, Dave.
Thousands of dollars, no doubt. And
even a minor repair in a transmission could be $1,500.
No
Overhauling it, 4 or 5. Even 8 to 10 grand, depending if it's an 8 or 9 speed transmission, and you've got a transfer case behind that. You're talking about just the labor alone could be 15 or 16 hours of labor you're paying someone just to pull the transmission and put another one in. So let's get down to where the rubber meets the road. I mean, how much money do you want to waste while you're neglecting doing what needs to be done? Even the manufacturers, and I think sometimes they're a little bit loose on the intervals. I'd rather change my stuff more often and prevent the inevitable and prolong the inevitable than find myself smoldering on the side of the road and my family's vacation has been destroyed because I didn't do something I should have done. I'm just going to take one more chance. I'm going to roll the dice one more time and hope that nothing happens. Well,
and one of the things that I always tell my clients, my job is to try to help you get the most cost-effective miles possible out of your vehicle.
Yep.
And the longevity from it, because we've talked about this on previous podcasts. These vehicles aren't getting any cheaper.
No,
they're getting more and more expensive. It's just getting crazier and crazier.
Well, our lives are getting more expensive. I mean, really, let's think about it. It's more expensive to go to the grocery store. More expensive, to go get your hair cut. More expensive, to go to the car wash, for crying out loud, or even the gas pump.
But what's something worse than that is they're extending out the loans for these cars for, they used to be 5 years, and then they went to 6 years and then 7 years.
8 years, 84 months.
Yeah, 8 years now. So by the time you get that car halfway through, that car isn't worth what you owe on it.
Right.
So the bottom line is you can turn around and sell that car for what you owe on it.
Right. And I think really what we're talking about is, and we're looking at it from the, I'm going to call the reverse angle. And that is, these are the kind of things that happen if you don't do it.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the real crux of this. What we're really hoping that we can kind of convey to the audience is that you adopt a new way of going about, attacking or making a plan of action for your vehicle. And that is just do some routine maintenance. Yes, you can pick whether or not you want to go 5,000 or whether you want to go 3,000. Yes, you can get some information from, your service provider as to,
and that's important. Sit down. I'm going to stop you right there because that's important to sit down with your service provider and get that information firsthand. And they'll let you know what they see, what they don't see, and the things that are that could be catastrophic. Amen. Because what we just talked about was the two most expensive things,
and tires, and that's it,
right? And tires, and one other thing. We got to wrap this show up here but one other thing I want to bring up, and I'm just going to bring this up very quickly, is that battery. Battery is the most under tested thing possible. Now, when you come into our shops, I know you guys do it. We all have this little battery tester. It's called State of Health, right?
Yes.
So it tells you the state of health of this battery, and a lot of times we can prevent you from coming out in that parking lot and click and car not starting. So we want
stuck out in the heat.
Right, and it's the worst time. I've changed the battery in the middle of a parking lot before, in the hottest day of the year, and it sucks.
It does.
And so I the important thing is get that battery checked. Whenever you get your oil change, you should have that battery tested. And we all know this. Batteries don't like extreme cold or extreme heat.
That's correct.
If your battery is weak, when it gets cold, it's going to fail. And when it gets hot, it's going to fail, right? So we've all been down this road, right? Yeah. And so it's very important for the consumer to understand that when you do go to a shop, have them look over your vehicle, have them give you basically a state of health of your vehicle. Mm-hmm. So when you're on that road, you feel confident about driving your vehicle and not having to worry about breakdown, because we all got busy lives, man. We got our kids, got events, we got all kinds of things going on, work. And so we want to make sure that vehicle is roadworthy. And another thing too is nothing worse than, let's say an emergency comes up and you need to drive your car to, Tucson. Yeah. Well, you know that somebody looked over your car and has a second set of eyes on it, so you can jump in that car and drive to Tucson. you know.
Yeah, I love that. And Dave, you know what? I'm thinking this. Maybe on a future podcast, we can talk just about the courtesy inspection. What's entailed? And not just why we do it, but what's entailed in it. Like, what are they receiving, you know what I mean, for what we're charging, which is next to nothing.
Yeah.
and in most
It's
cases,
for the time.
nothing.
Well, you're right. And for the time, we actually, you know, it's a deficit. It's a kind of a loss leader.
The
But
key to it is those,
Yeah.
like what you said.
Yeah.
What is peace of mind worth?
a lot.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
I just want to throw
wanna say one more thing?
One more thing about for the DIYs or whatever, not DUIs, the DIY do-it-yourselfers. You know, you try to save money by going to the local auto parts store. Hey, I need a battery for my car, and there's many batteries that look the same. They have the same numbers on them, except there's a little thing called an AGM.
Mm-hmm.
It's a glass mat battery. The construction is different. The cell structure is different, and it's correct for your electronic components, which
And they're
most cars
vented
have.
usually.
They're vented out, a different way than a normal battery, so they don't get all the corrosion on the terminals. But the bottom line is that particular battery, if it's an AGM, you need to put an AGM back in there. I don't care if it's $50 or $100 more than
And
a
it is.
non-AGM.
yeah, a
and they
lot more
are.
expensive.
And it is.
But
You're going to have electronic problems with your vehicle.
Couldn't agree with you more, Glenn.
yeah, you
And we
take
see it all the time. Someone put the wrong battery in cars, especially hybrid vehicles and stuff like that. You got to have the right battery. Just because it fits and the terminals are on the right side of the battery doesn't mean it's the right battery for your car. Spend the money. I don't make more profit on them. I just put the right battery so you're not going to have problems.
and I
That's
mean,
the point.
In today's world where we're going to electric vehicles and stuff like that, they all have, you know, high intense batteries, and they've all got 12-volt batteries.
well, and I always tell
you know what?
I tell people this all the time. You know what? Your PC, just send the incorrect amount of power to it and see what happens.
Yeah.
It ain't going to work right.
Right.
But hey, Lee, why don't you take us home? Well,
All right.
you got something for us here, and then
I do. I got a quote of the day,
shut
and
this thing down.
I kind of like this one. It was this is a really good one because it is really fits into the category of worst case scenarios. So, honk if you love Jesus.
There you go.
Text and drive if you want to meet him.
Yeah, I saw that on a billboard one time. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny, but it is. It's actually true.
It's accurate.
It's accurate. There
like
you go.
automotive.
Yeah, accurate automotive. You got to throw that in there.
I did.
Lee's plug for the day.
There we go.
Hey guys, you know what? It's been great. I've enjoyed this show. I think hopefully we gave a lot of great information for our listeners out there.
I hope so.
And I'm looking forward to us doing another one. It's been a great day and good to hang out with you guys. And
Thank you, brother.
hey man, have a
Thanks.
great day. And
Always a
Take
pleasure
care.
being around such great minds as yours. I mean, we've all been doing this for a long time, and so we all have something really great to contribute. So
have a
thanks
great
for-
day,
Thanks
everybody.
for being here.
Be good.
Stay safe.